All right. Hello, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Michaela McShane, and it is my privilege to welcome you to the T2U Innovation Series, featuring firsthand experiences and best practices from distinguished instructors at colleges and universities around the country. These instructors have valuable perspectives about the educational benefits of working with NASA-developed technology and an understanding of the entrepreneurial value of leveraging this NASA IP resource to start tech-based companies. Today, we will hear from Jeff Whalen, the STEM entrepreneur in residence at Florida State University, Moran College of Entrepreneurship. Before I get started, I'd like to point out that your microphones will be muted throughout this presentation. So if you have any questions, please type them into the chat box, and during the Q&A session, we will address them. A little background on the program. NASA's Technology Transfer Program works to ensure that innovations developed for exploration and discovery are broadly available to the public. And our Tech Transfer Expansion Program augments that mission to include a focus on entrepreneurial innovation and strategic partnerships to help accelerate commercialization. NASA's Technology Transfer University Program within the Tech Transfer and T2X larger umbrella takes this another step further by bringing NASA-developed technologies directly to entrepreneurially minded students in the classroom. T2U helps NASA build relationships with innovative colleges and universities around the country while introducing cutting-edge NASA-developed technology to their students. We invite you to visit the NASA T2U website for more information about the program, and thank you again for joining us today. Our speaker is Jeff Whalen, an academic and an entrepreneur. Jeff has a Bachelor's of Science in Biochemistry and a doctorate in Inorganic Chemistry from Florida State University. After completing his postdoctoral studies at the National High Magnet Field Laboratory in 2012, he accepted a position on the research faculty at FSU, where he worked until 2019. Jeff has started multiple companies over his 20-year entrepreneurial career and has executed federally funded projects with the state of Florida, the National Science Foundation, U.S. Department of Energy, and the U.S. Department of Defense. Jeff's enthusiasm and passion surrounding education and research have always been his platform for innovation, commercialization, and the creation of educational content. And with that, I will hand it over to Jeff to tell you about his T2U program at Florida State.
Thank you, Michaela. I appreciate that introduction, and appreciate everyone coming on today to let me share a little bit about myself and our programs at Florida State University and how we got involved with Michaela and all the team at T2U, and a little bit about what's happening in our neck of the woods with regards to engagement with the programs. So I will go ahead and pull up some slides to share with you all today. So my involvement at Florida State University, as Michaela mentioned, is as the STEM entrepreneur in residence. And a lot of people, talk to me about what I do at the university, and in all honesty, STEM entrepreneurship, even though there's already an acronym, is a lot to say. So I'll start off by defining this new acronym, this new deviation on STEM, and I call it Stemi. And really what it means is STEM entrepreneurship. So it'll be a term that I'll probably reference pretty frequently in this presentation, and is starting to become sort of normal language for us at FSU and the Jim Moran College. Okay, so just a little bit on me, so that gives a sense for the context of who I am and my story. As Michaela mentioned, I have a PhD in inorganic chemistry. Most of the work I did for my dissertation was in hydrogen storage materials for fuel cell applications. And after completing my PhD, I joined the research faculty at the National High Magnetic Field Lab and worked there for about 10 years. Did some really great projects. Most of it was around solid state materials like single crystals and polycrystal systems, and then later in magnetic technologies and magnetic systems with power controls. I switched gears and joined the Jim Moran College, and I've been here for about 5 years. I am the creator and the director of the Stemi program. It's a Bachelor of Science degree, and it's something that's not only near and dear to my heart, but it's also something that's really special because to the best of my knowledge, FSU is the only place that you can go right now and get a Bachelor of Science in STEM entrepreneurship. Through the process of launching and creating and launching that program, it was a pretty heavy lift. I developed a lot of classes. I've got a slide that I can share if anybody wants to see later the types of classes that I created, but it's about 9 new courses, and I also teach in our graduate programs for our Master of Science in Entrepreneurship for product development program. For about 6 years, I've been the director of Magnetics Corporation. I am the original founder and the managing member. MagCorp is really a special kind of company. It's my entrepreneur hat that I wear. That I think legitimizes me when the university calls me a STEM entrepreneur in residence. It would be odd for me not to have a company. So, MagCorp has been my main focus for quite a while, and we leverage a very unique public-private partnership model. We executed a master agreement with Florida State University in 2020, and basically what it does is it standardizes all of the terms of engagement for those public-private partnerships to collaborate on innovation together. And we've done some great projects for Oak Ridge National Lab and Phillips and Lockheed Martin Missile Control, all types of different stuff, from developing pulse magnets for large 3D printers to developing military specifications for rare earth permanent magnets, and doing work in magnetic resonance imaging as well. I have a second company called Whalen Consulting. I've had it for quite a while. It's pivoted a lot, but these days it is a portfolio of ventures. Almost every single one of them is STEM enabled or technology enabled in some way. And there's about 10 companies in the portfolio right now that I would consider, fully validated and within their markets. And they vary from automated computer vision quality control software was one of the projects. We did some sensor manufacturing with another company. A lot of what I do these days is in the water industry and natural water remediation in the state of Florida. And we do quite a bit of work on patent development and just general strategic consulting and board level service, especially for SBIRs, TTRs. And as you can see from my picture, I'm a passionate fisherman. I've been my entire life, and a couple, cap offs to who I am. For me to be a science entrepreneur, it really has not been an easy road. Maybe what's on the slide right now makes it seem like all of these stories were nothing but awesome success, and that's because I just list the good stuff. But I have gone through plenty of failure. I have a similar story to many other entrepreneurs where the main things that I've learned professionally have really mostly been through failure, but it was never a tough decision. The decision to be an entrepreneur was not the hard part for me. It really was just the execution. And part of the one of the things that's always helped me through those tough times and through those failures has been this concept that our reality is just a perception and we can really change it. And I find that, with what I do as an employee at the university versus what I do as an owner at my companies, that reality as a perception, that understanding that we create what we think is reality around us because it makes us feel like we're in control and we know what's possible and what's not possible. And that really works well, I think, as an employee. But as an entrepreneur, when you're in business by yourself or for yourself, that really can limit us. And taking off that backpack of risk and responsibility, and really saying that we don't know what true reality is, I think is really important as an entrepreneur. And the last piece I'll share is that I am a very disciplined entrepreneur. I mean, probably the most disciplined entrepreneur you will ever meet. And failure has taught me this. But oftentimes when I say this to people, they say, "Oh, you must work really hard then. You must work like 100 hours a week or something." And that's not what I mean by discipline. What I mean by discipline as an entrepreneur is that I require such an extreme level of validation to justify my decision making as an entrepreneur that oftentimes it will burn me out to the point where it takes so much to convince me of something being true before I take the risk of actually putting it into play, that that level of discipline really is demonstrated. And simple things like what I do with my students when they say to me, "Hey, Dr. Jeff, I have this business idea. What do you think about my business idea? Tell me if you like it." And I tell them the same thing every time, which is I'm glad to tell you whether or not I like it, but my opinion is meaningless because I'm just one person. And by myself, there's no way I'll ever support your company as a viable business. So, how can we have the discipline to not jump to the conclusion of whether or not to start that business, and instead systematically and strategically develop an approach where we can get the validation from the market before we try to make that decision ourselves? So lots that I can speak to on those three topics, but that I will leave for my classroom. My biggest focus with what I do at the university is really on the next generation. I dump everything I've got into my students, and I am a science entrepreneur, and I teach STEMI, and a lot of my students embody the same things, and I love to educate. I do a lot of entrepreneurship education, even all the way down to the kindergarten level. I'm a really active author. I write a lot of entrepreneurship related textbooks and guidebooks, oftentimes collaborating with my past students on those authorship activities. And I'm also a very dedicated mentor. All of the images of the people you see in the bottom right corner there are mentees of mine that some of them I've been working with for going on almost 10 years. And I'm super proud of the achievements that they continue to demonstrate. So a little bit about sort of like where this comes from. It's really all about that next generation for me. Um, so what does that look like, and how does T2U play into my programs and my focus on that next generation? Well, it actually is it could not be a better fit, and I want to give a little context for why, because the programs that I run really all require that hybridization of both science, technology, engineering, and math with entrepreneurship to make that STEM E. And the programs I've sort of dubbed with this goal of creating this new breed of CEO. And a lot of entrepreneurs out there are really familiar with the situation that arises at STEM enabled companies or technology companies where you have a very business focused side of the house, and then you have a very technical focused side of the house, and the business side of the house will yell at the technical side and say, just get it done, we have to make money. And the technical side will come back and say, you can't throw money at scientific problems, it doesn't solve the problem. It takes intellectual power, and it takes time, and it takes failure. And we have implosions of companies, a wasteland of failed ventures out there that didn't die because they didn't have a market. They didn't die because their technology wasn't viable. They died because they were being led by individuals that could not speak both the business language and the science language. So that new breed of CEO that I'm seeking to create with my programs finally will be able to fluidly communicate with both sides of the house at their company. Some of these pictures show some of the activities that we do in my classes. We do a lot of field trips. That picture on the right is the 45 Tesla hybrid magnet at the National High Magnetic Field Lab. This is the world's most powerful magnet verified by Guinness Book of World Records annually. Really great instrument. And the picture on the left is the Capitol building in Tallahassee, Florida, where we finish off our semester by going up there. Quickly, just a little bit about how this program works. At most universities, you can get a STEM major in whatever field you want, and you can get some entrepreneurship minor. And I view that as sort of a 70-30 split, where 70% is your comprehensive understanding of the technical subject matter, and you kind of know the basics of entrepreneurship. You're enough to be dangerous, as I say, in entrepreneurship. But with our STEMI program that I've launched at FSU, we flip the balance beam the other way. And we are enough to be dangerous in that STEM field. And what I mean by that is we have the ability to communicate, and we can identify resources, and we can build teams in the technical fields, in the scientific disciplines, but we are experts in venture creation. Not enough to be dangerous on that side anymore, but instead fully capable entrepreneurs that have that discipline that I was talking about, as well as the hard skills that are required to create new companies and offerings. And the pictures in the bottom of this slide are actually of one of the students that was on the previous slide, and I've been mentoring for the longest. And he worked for me at the Mag Lab for many years, and then at the same time as he was being a mechanical engineer and doing what he was doing for my projects, he was also out there winning business plan competitions. And I really would always sit back and say, wow, this is this is an incredible human. Like, how can we better support people out there that have that entrepreneurial spirit combined with the intellectual horsepower to operate in the STEM fields? So there we go. Okay, and just one final thing on our programs, quick overview. I don't want it to make it seem like we only have STEMI. We have a lot of undergraduate programs, commercial, automotive franchising, retail entrepreneurship. We're about to launch creative arts entrepreneurship. We have a sports entrepreneurship program that will launch soon. We have a lot of undergraduate minors. There's way more than are on this slide. And we have graduate programs, Master of Science in Entrepreneurship, 1 year coursework only master's programs in the specialties listed in the right box over here. So if you have any interest to learn more about the programs we have here, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information will be on the last slide. And a lot of these programs at the graduate level can be taken either in person or fully virtual. So one area in specific where T2U has come into play in my programs is in a space that I call the Stemi Lab. And we have great stuff at FSU, tons of innovation resources, awesome spaces for students to collaborate. I mean, it's everything you would expect from a tier one research university in one of the most populous states in the United States. And what it was lacking, though, was a space where creation and commercialization of STEM-enabled ventures and offerings was being supported by not just demonstration alone. We had plenty of spaces where students could go, well, I want to experience virtual reality, or I want to experience robotics, and they could experience it through demonstration, but they actually were not in development. They didn't have an opportunity to innovate and commercialize in those spaces. So the Stemi Lab was really a vision to complement what we had for demonstration by having creative spaces. And a lot of the students that have been looking at getting engaged with T2U and thinking about technology in the patent portfolio that they can use, come to the Stemi Lab and have a spot where they can talk to somebody about ideas for how that integration could happen. They could even do some simple testing in the lab to get a sense of if that particular patent from NASA is exactly what they needed for their venture. We focus a lot on metaverse and mechatronic prototyping, so lots of little robots and sensors and actuators and lots of software and lots of headsets. Oh my gosh, we got so many. We got every single type of headset that's commercially available right now. And we do we're like a chop shop almost. We got developer mode opened up on all these things, and we create our own APIs, and some of these things we've actually started to even deconstruct the hardware to try to be able to get a little more functionality out of them that we're looking for. We also have a great market validation experimentation benchtop. This benchtop is not a physical benchtop. This benchtop is comprised of people, experience, and tactics that the students can use to validate their markets. I always tell people, if there's one thing that I've learned about market validation from my failures as an entrepreneur, it is that you should literally have 100 times more market validation at any given point in your entrepreneur journey than you do technical validation, which, to put it in just straight normal terms, you got to be 100% sure somebody's going to buy it before you bother making it. And how can we develop experiments to test that? The natural human instinct is you build it and then you see if it sells. But as an entrepreneur, if you think about the risk that's involved with that, the reputation risk, the financial risks, you can maybe do that once, but after that, you may run out of cash, right? So how can we develop these experiments that allow us to test before we execute? Got some great resources. Many of you are probably familiar with Unreal Engine and things like LabVIEW and MATLAB and Unity Engine. Got a nice component bench with some soldering irons and some simple circuit breadboards and things like that, and lots of little sensors and components. We just kind of stockpile it with whatever people are interested in. And then probably the most valuable thing about the Stemi Lab is we've got subject matter experts, including myself, and commercial partners along with graduate students in the space. So you can see some of the students that frequent the Stemi Lab often, and the woman in the picture all the way to the right is the entrepreneur in residence at the College of Nursing. And we do a lot of collaboration together, and a lot of what what we do for the students is giving them a space that they can walk into and ask a strange question about the metaverse, or ask something that they feel like is really stupid or ignorant about robotics, or environmental biology, or anything that's STEMI related, and have somebody in there that feels comfortable answering those questions. So making it a central hub. A couple of quick things that I'll skim over here. We've got a really nice Stempreneur timeline that the students actually made, and you sort of walk through it, and it does an augmented reality presentation of STEM entrepreneurs through history, starting with kind of Thomas Edison and moving up to Elon Musk. Just sort of helps people get a sense for, what is a STEM entrepreneur? What does that even mean? And we've also got a really cool world map that we deploy in virtual reality. And the students made a really simple algorithm that goes on the internet. It searches all of the URLs and the metadata for the websites for keywords that we tell it to look for, to determine if a company is a STEM-enabled venture, and to also monitor for when new companies appear on the internet and when old ones go away. So it checks the internet on a certain frequency, and then the students can put the headset on and they can sort it, and they can filter it, and they can view it on a map, and they can look at it really however they want, with just the goal of making the point that even though the acronym STEMI is totally made up by me, and I don't even know if anybody else would adopt it other than me, and despite the fact also that you say STEM entrepreneurship, and so many people in society say, I don't know what that means, you're going to have to explain that to me. The actual STEM entrepreneurs and the STEM enabled ventures have been around for a really long time, and there's more now than there ever have been in history before. So again, tying this back to T2U, this type of shift in terms of what entrepreneurship means towards STEM-enabled ventures really, I think, lays the platform for T2U to be continuously relevant, especially as we start to see dual use cases come into play more and more, where NASA technology may have been made for a certain purpose within the mission of NASA, but the dual use opportunities may have nothing to do with NASA's mission and everything to do with a student's mission through their venture. So I think those dual use cases really will have more opportunity the more the students create STEM-enabled ventures as time goes on. So world map is a lot of fun. I have a couple of slides to give you a sense of what these students create. There's a lot of words on this slide that you can check out later. I'm not going to read them to you. It's just sort of some quotes and things like that. But this student and actually one other student that came on a little later from when this slide was created developed a software that is a augmented reality enabled app, so that you can hold your phone up and be in a city and turn it around, and it will show you where all of the real estate properties for rent and sale are located. So you can see it in the bottom middle image there. It's like looking in New York City, and you can see sort of all the different apartments that are available, and then you can get information and do the virtual tour without having to contact the agent. This is another one of my graduate students. They make really nice handbags and other types of retail items and larger duffel bags out of used sailboat sails. And I love this business model in particular because these guys get paid to go pick up this garbage from the sailing clubs, and then they turn around and they sell it at a premium as a retail product. So really like this one, pulling plastic out of the landfills, literally. And this student is of a particular interest because she is one of the students that is actually pursuing startup license under the T2U program. And her company is called MyPlant. It is an automated system for managing indoor plants for homeowners. So it rather than watering and maintaining soil parameters on a timer, it does so based off of sensors, and it is there that there is the overlap with the T2U program because this student, her name is Diksha, she went onto the portfolio, she found technology on there, she said, Dr. Jeff, what do you think about this? And what she was pointing to was a moisture sensor. And the moisture sensor that was in the patent portfolio for NASA was not meant to sense moisture in soil, but nonetheless, the resolution of the sensor was perfect for Diksha's application because it had the higher sensitivity to be able to discern between different levels of moisture, which for her was important because her product needs to be able to be programmable for different types of plants. Whether someone has a cactus or a succulent in the pot, we have to be able to tell the pot that this is the case. So a couple of stories. I've got a couple of thoughts here that I want to lead off with, and these are just sort of to everybody out there that might be thinking, this might be T2U might be a good program for where I teach, or maybe T2U doesn't seem like a good program because I'm really of the mindset that if you are a educator at a college or university, there's no downside at all. I mean, it's purely only gain. And one of the things about integrating T2U into anybody's curriculum is that uh, there are so many really great opportunities for integration, depending on what your college does. And for us at FSU, here's a few things that we did that I feel like worked well. And one of them was running workshops where literally, the students are a little bit daunted when you say, "Oh, there's 2,000 patents in NASA's portfolio. Go find something." You know, and they're like, "Dr. Jeff, what are you talking about? Like, I don't even know how to read that claims tree in that patent." So doing the workshops was great, where I would just come on and say, come and do this workshop. We'll peruse the patent portfolio. And when the students all get there, I say, "Okay, somebody give us a starting point. What's an interesting thing for your company?" And they'll start calling out things, and we'll just put the keywords into the patent portfolio, and we'll look at the top sheets, and we'll talk about opportunities. And in real time, when those students say, "Hey, that one seems interesting," I can go, "Here you go," and email it to them right on the spot. So it really helps kind of drive the engagement into the curriculum beyond just sort of cutting the students loose and expecting them to do it on their own. Another thing is linking them to assessments and competitions. So at almost every college and university, we have business plan and idea competitions that are focused around commercialization and technology and enablement through STEM is oftentimes a big factor in terms of judging of those entries. And beyond a shadow of a doubt, students that are at FSU and get up and say, "I work with Dr. Jeff in the NASA T2U program. I am investigating a startup license or a commercial license for NASA technology." It resonates with the people that judge these competitions, and equally with instructors doing assessments. Students that are able to show that they're leveraging NASA T2U in their projects, which again, as an entrepreneurship college, our students' projects are always ventures, they're companies. Has a lot to say when it comes, has a lot to carry when it comes to being assessed as to whether or not there's a competitive advantage, as well as being judged in competitions. And then the last one, I cannot stress this enough. Trent and Michaela and Delvin and everybody else on the T2U system, bring them into your classroom by Zoom. I mean, it is the best. As an instructor, you get the obvious thing, which is somebody that runs your class for a day, which I mean, no instructor doesn't enjoy that. But on top of that, it's an engaging experience for the students. I know a lot of us from COVID and everything, Zoom isn't really our favorite anymore, but they've got it really figured out. There's a screenshot on this slide of Trent giving a talk to my students just last week. And it's great. It's only like about 20 minutes, and then the students can ask all kinds of questions. And so, I try to bring the T2U team into my semester. And I just feel like purposes, you just simply cannot go wrong with that. Some of our outcomes for our program, we've got 2 STEMI students, as I mentioned. These are senior Bachelor of Science students that are pursuing the startup license. Diksha is one. The other student's name is Adam. He is developing a white label training and onboarding platform. And what he is he's actually looking at a few NASA technologies, but most of them have to do with information technology and data management, because he's got multiple deployments of his software, all white labeled. And what I mean by that is the customers of his can brand his training platform to be for anything, whether they're onboarding new employees at a company, or one of his biggest customer bases is for new students to do orientation in an automated fashion instead of having the colleges deploy training for new students. I've had probably at least 5, I mean, probably 8 or 10 just in the last year, virtual visits from T2U in my classrooms. And twice they have even been willing to come in person. And I think that, the in-person visits were really particularly interesting. The T2U member that came, when he got there, I said, hey, why don't we do a Shark Tank and have the students pitch for you? And then you can give us a sense of maybe something in that patent portfolio that student should go look at. It was wildly successful. It was so much fun. The students had a blast. The T2U member came back, said that was really fun. So that was a really cool outcome, I think, was all of those visits, especially those in-person ones. And then one of the other big outcomes has been the collaborations. I mentioned earlier the entrepreneur in residence at College of Nursing, but T2U has given me a reason to connect students interdisciplinary between engineering and nursing and medicine and even the education colleges, where without something to offer, all I can say for collaboration is, hey, maybe the students can meet each other, or let's have a pizza party, or do you want to do some research together and publish a paper? It's the normal modes. Suddenly now I say, hey, we're working with NASA T2U. Do you know what it is? And they say, no, I don't know what it is. What are you talking about? And I say, they give the students a 3-year free license, basically. And the other faculty member look at me and be like, well, my students would probably want that. And I say, yeah. So, those openings of the doors for collaboration, I think, is another really critical outcome of having T2U at FSU. And lastly, just kind of want to share a few lessons learned and key takeaways for any of you that are in the midst of deploying T2U, you already have it going, or you're thinking about doing it. As I mentioned before, the portfolio is daunting to the students. I think for a lot of us, especially if we come from the STEM fields, database usage is not a big deal for us. We're comfortable with it, but a lot of the students are not. So take the time to help them get comfortable with it. Pull it up in class. Talk about it all the time. Make it so that they feel comfortable going and accessing it when they feel like they just want to check and see if something's out there. So I think that's a real key lesson learned, because when we started, I just kind of pushed the easy button as a professor, and I was like, hey, go check the portfolio. Well, nobody did. So until I kind of pushed them a little bit and helped them get comfortable with it, that was kind of a bottleneck for us. And then the other bottleneck was this shifting in focus, because the students oftentimes, especially in entrepreneurship, face this challenge where they feel like it's a big decision. Like just to even go look at the patents. Oh, what I don't want to commit. What if it's not right? So I think helping them shift that focus of big decisions of whether or not to pursue the NASA technology to more simple conversations about how the technology could affect their market, how technologies of any kind could create leverage or differentiation for their companies or their projects. Those are much more familiar discussions for the students to have. And once they have a sense of what they're actually looking for, the decision doesn't feel so big to actually go and maybe pursue something. So just kind of shifting that focus, even outside of the T2U program, I find that the students face this mental paralysis when it comes to launching their ventures, where they just feel like there's never going to be an opportunity to pivot, and once they commit, there's never any way out. So I think one of the key takeaways applying that back to T2U was just to help move to smaller baby steps towards that same big decision. And then lastly, it's just bringing T2U into the classroom literally as much as possible. That's something that's so easy to do, and the team at T2U provides all the resources to be able to do that. So it's been a definitely a key lesson learned for me, is just rather than sort of launching it and expecting it to be adopted as this co-curricular thing, embedding it into the curriculum via usage in the classroom through visits and talking and linking it to assessments and providing updates on Canvas or other learning management systems about events like this speaker series. I think just really helps the students to stay engaged, as well as providing a gateway for other faculty to adopt those same practices when they view people like me doing it in my classroom. So that is about what I've got. I really appreciate the time to share today. My email is right here, but to be honest, all you need is my name and the internet, because I'm a very easy person to find with Google. So thank you very much for the time to share today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. That was incredibly informative, and I very much enjoyed hearing more about the program, even though, like you said, have been involved and spoken to the class a number of times. I just want to touch briefly on one of the points that you made about how walking through the portfolio with the students makes it a lot more approachable to them, because that is one of the critical things we're trying to do with T2U, is not only make NASA technology more accessible to people who've never considered licensing government developed IP, but making it more accessible, or accessible to, like you said, people who might be intimidated by it. So I think that was a really important point that you made, and something I wanted to highlight before we get into Q&A. So yeah, with that, I'm going to kick off with the first question. So you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation that this STEMI program works with the STEM fields, obviously. So what does that collaboration look like?
Oh, so the collaboration. Let me. I have a slide prepared. I'm going to skip to it. I'll come back to this slide in case anybody wants to jot the email. But this is sort of what it looks like in the STEMI program, and the way that we achieve the integration of the STEM portion, that 30%, is through the students choosing a minor. We call it sometimes a focus area of STEM to study as part of their curriculum. So this is the full curriculum for the students, and we get them in their upper division classes. So you can kind of think about it as our entrepreneurship students get their associate's degrees, and then they come into our program to finish their bachelor's degrees in coming into their junior year. So they take a lot of courses that are entrepreneurship related, and then you'll see every semester almost they have to take a STEM minor course. So the STEM minor course is something they can choose. I have students doing biophysics, computational science, computer science, mechanical engineering, biology, biochemistry. They really can choose. Innovation has been another hot one that a lot of the students have chose. And if the university offers a minor in that field, the students go and get that minor. If it doesn't offer a minor, like for the case of some of my STEMI students that are focusing in nursing, and there's no nursing minor, what we do is we call it a focus area, and we work with that STEM department to develop a set of courses that would constitute a minor if the department or college did offer a minor. So that gives us another really cool way to collaborate through this program. But the students, I tell people when they take these STEM courses, they go and do it at that academic unit. I am not there to protect them. They must go through these courses just like any other student that was majoring in that STEM field. So this is a rather challenging course, challenging curriculum for a lot of the students, especially with those STEM minor courses. And I tend to find that we get like two main kinds of students. We get students who see the STEMI program and they just tell me, Dr. Jeff, I knew that's what I wanted. Like as soon as I saw it, and they're not really from a STEM field, so they're more challenged in these STEM minor courses. And then we get other students that think they were going to go into a STEM field and realize that the entrepreneurial spirit in them was stronger than they had given credit when they chose that STEM track, and now want to still be able to leverage what they've done by taking STEM courses, but they want an entrepreneurship degree. So a lot of times they'll come in and they'll have these STEM minor courses already done when they start my program, which means that now they can choose from these elective courses that I've got listed on the right. And a couple of those are really, really fun courses. The healthcare entrepreneurship course is fantastic. Enough to be Dangerous is a field trip course where we take about 17 field trips on a bus around Tallahassee to visit the STEM-enabled ventures, the innovation foundries, and the key ecosystem development partners in the community. And then the entrepreneur's perspective on a survey of STEM, I call it Enough to be Dangerous Junior, has about 25 walking field trips on FSU main campus where we try to visit every STEM academic unit, every STEM facility, instrumentation, expertise, whatever it can loosely be related to STEM. I try to talk to whoever runs it, and can I bring my students down there? Can you talk to them for a few minutes? And we go on a fun field trip. So I hope that gives a sense for how it engages with the STEM fields. And I'll also point out that some of those 9 courses that I mentioned that I developed for this program include what's listed in the spring semester, data science entrepreneurship, and then in the center fall semester, STEM research methods. I'm actually piloting that course this semester. That has been a fantastic adventure, and the course is basically it mimics a chemistry lab, a general chemistry lab that you would find at any university. The difference is that we are a venture creation lab, but we literally have an experimental procedure handbook. We do experiment reports. We have experimental notebooks. It's just that we are not testing titration or solvency or flame spectroscopy or any of the other things you would do in a chemistry lab. We are testing for proper branding. We are testing for product prototyping strategies. We are testing for manufacturability and product development and cost minimization. And in the early experiments, we're simply testing for the existence of markets. So really fun class. And then in that final spring semester, we have STEM product development. So a couple of examples there. And, happy to share. We have some really nice flyers. I'm happy to share those with anybody who would like to see them. You feel free to email me and I can send you some nice flyers.
Awesome, thank you. I think you actually answered a couple of the other questions that I had, so I'm going to jump to down a few. So how well does T2U play with cross-disciplinary student teams? So STEM students working with business students or technical students or even creative students.
I mean, that I think is a perfect fit. I mean, it's the business students and the entrepreneur students. They may not be too keen on going, fully down the rabbit hole to understand exactly why that NASA technology is so innovative or exactly the functionality of it and how it actually works, but they trust NASA and they know that if NASA says it's innovative, it is. So those business and those entrepreneurship students now view it as a differentiator and a lever that they can use to beat out competition, to address markets that were previously unaddressable, to better address markets that are being underserved right now, to minimize cost, to increase and add secondary functions and features to products that they make. So I think those business students really, a lot of it is that NASA brand and the validation that comes from saying this was NASA technology, lets those business and entrepreneurship students know that it has value, even though they may not understand the technical, ins and outs of the technology. And then on the other side, for the STEM students, I think you've got the same thing where now they may be most interested in the technology itself and not the market impacts of the technology, but just that innovation itself. And now they have a starting point to think about how they can use it for the venture purpose. So Diksha, the student that I mentioned earlier that's doing MyPlant, she knows exactly what she wants that device to do. But she looks at the NASA patent and she says, well, that's not, exactly the right fit. But if I change this one thing and use it in this little bit different way, it would be perfect. So I think it gives the STEM students also a really nice platform to not have to always feel like they're reinventing the wheel in order to have something special and innovative that they can put into their project or their venture. So that's kind of where I think those cross-disciplinary teams are actually like a really great fit for T2U and the sort of hybridization and matchup of STEM with commercialization.
Perfect, thank you. So the next question asks, what kind of resources does NASA provide to support the program in terms of the tech transfer office, the innovators, and the curriculum? So before I have you jump in, I'm going to say that this is an instructor-led program. As Jeff has discussed, you would incorporate the NASA tech into an existing or a new curriculum that you develop. We don't provide one. That's part of why we do this series, to give a framework of how other people have done it in the past. So Jeff, I'll let you take the rest of the question.
Thanks, Michaela. And yeah, so I mean, to be honest, I'll echo what I mentioned earlier in my slides. The T2U team makes it so easy. I mean, they're there to present in class and they're there to answer questions and they're there to give feedback and they help the students directly and they've got, several people on there. So if one person's on vacation, I'm not, stuck without being able to answer a student's question or connect them with somebody. So I think that, it's very, very easy to integrate it. And some of the ways that I've been supported have included those classroom visits. I've also been able to get even feedback from you, Michaela, on course objectives for new courses that I develop and ways that they can be integrated, ideas and brainstorming around new competitions. Another form of support that, truthfully, I should have mentioned it in the presentation because it's so significant. But Diksha, through T2U and through the relationships that she formed with you and the team there, she got to go into that accelerator program over the summer, which was, she came back and said that was the most incredible entrepreneur experience she has ever had since she came to this university. So, you know, being supported secondarily by things like the accelerator programs and ambassador programs, I think is phenomenal support that, despite the fact that T2U is very unique and we don't have a lot of precedents for, other government agencies or corporate partners or anybody offering this kind of thing, um, it's also got a lot built out already that supports it in spite of it being, very, very unique. And I just think that the offering itself uh, sort of sells to the students and sells to the faculty that may want to adopt the program without much of a pitch, because you're going to be really challenged to find any organization out there that is willing to give people 3 years to evaluate technology before they have to start paying royalties. In most cases, licensing involves a fee up front to even start using the technology for evaluation, much less royalties that run off of revenue or profits thereafter. So I think that, that may be a form of support. I will definitely say that is a form of support, but it's just built into the way that the program operates anyway, and doesn't really require much of a sales pitch.
Thanks, Jeff. And to that point, really quickly, we don't have time to get into it here, unfortunately, but our contact information for NASA's T2U program will be up on the screen at the end of this presentation. If you have questions about T2U from a programmatic level, or if you'd like to learn more about the new accelerator program that we put on that Jeff was referring to, feel free to reach out to us directly. And we have time for one question, and I'm going to ask this one. So Jeff, I know you gave a lot of advice and a lot of fantastic lessons learned, but what would you leave everybody with, just as kind of final thoughts, final words of advice or encouragement for the program and just as an instructor?
Sure. I will give two pieces of advice then, one about the program and the other one as an instructor. When it comes to the program, probably the key advice that I would give is um, maybe to self-reflect what I mentioned earlier for the students, where trying to shift away from thinking that it's a big, huge decision. I mean, Michaela sent me the onboarding paperwork. It was one page. It's like it was so simple. It took 5 minutes to have the department review it, and it was. They said, Jeff, this is fine. So I think, like, not seeing it as like a giant commitment, or being worried that, if you're a professor and you're going to go and show this to the vice president for research at your university, or the president or the provost or whoever's going to make the decision about whether or not your institution can become involved, it's not some giant agreement that the university or the college is going to struggle to agree with. It's really simple. So, my advice would be, don't see it as a big decision or that you got to really prepare and be ready. I think it's a lot more fun to just kind of dive in, enjoy the program, and learn as you go. Because even though my advice may be useful to some of you out there, it's probably not plug and play for you at your university, especially if you don't have a STEM entrepreneurship program and you're trying to deploy this in other programs. And as an instructor, I would love to give tons of advice. I would do another hour of talking, but I will boil it down to say that the thing that has always driven me and still does to this day is I strive to be the type of professor that I know would have been a critical and significant help to me when I was in that position of my students. And I'm a scientist and I made it through, but it wasn't always with a whole lot of glamour. And I was one of those C students that really, really could have used somebody back then to encourage and motivate me to strive for better in my academic and professional and personal life. So, to all of you out there that educate college students, I hope that you kind of think about it as, sort of, sometimes these students, they may not seem like they're all A students, and they may not seem like and the C students may seem like they're just destined for this C grade of life, but a lot of times they may just be going through a period in their life, and being there to support them as their professor or instructor, I think, is one of the coolest things about what we do as our jobs.
Thank you so much, Jeff. That's all the time we have for today. If we didn't get to your question during the Q&A, we will follow up with you by email. And once again, thank you, Jeff, for the presentation and for sharing your experience with this program. And thank you all for joining us today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, Michaela.